Good afternoon and welcome to the second Sustainability Partnerships Day of Action webinar. Thank you to everyone who came in this morning to our supply chain webinar. If you've come back, appreciate you sticking with us. If you couldn't make it this morning, I think that our team have already started working on the write-up for that one, and we'll have that recording going live on our website and across our social media soon as well. So the Day of Action is something that's been going for, I'd say it must be around 10 years now. We as Sustainability Partnerships took this over and launched in 2021. Sorry, apologies for those who expected for the Day of Action to be in June. We did have to move it to July with the election getting in the way of any conversations with any officials in the NHS. But we are glad that we've had so many people to sign up to this one. We're not sure if it's because it's lunchtime or if everyone's just really interested in the topic. It's one of my favorites, but it does make sure that the team is super hungry by the time we get finished and we're ready for our lunch once we're done. So I won't take up everyone's time too much. We've got a great lineup today. We've got Andy Berry, who's going to start the story around what the NHS are looking for and what great things that they're up to internally when it comes to looking at carbon footprint of food. We're then going to move on to Becky. If you couldn't tell, she's from Seasonwell, and she's going to give us her presentation, finishing off with Grant Keenan, and he is going to talk through more around the waste side of food within the NHS. So I'm going to pass straight over to you, Andy, first of all. If you do have any comments, please use the comments section. We're happy for you guys to have conversations, leave details, links, any of that kind of stuff. If you do have a specific question for any of our speakers, please use the Q&A function so I don't lose it in the comments. And we can then have a session, a Q&A after all of the presentations are finished, as is usual. So without any ado then, Andy, please let us know who you are and what you're going to be talking about today, and take it away.
As introduced, I'm Andy Berry. I work for the NHS. I work in the University Hospitals of Leicester, and I'm a senior back of house supervisor. And I'm going to be talking about the kind of points that we've had given to us for the actual whole talk. I'll start off with the minimalising the environmental impact. The trust we're working on, every new corporation we start working with, we're looking for it to be a B corporation, which means they're environmentally vetted already before they start working with us. And another point is with a veggie meal, if you have one a day per week for 52 days, that would be in a year, you would save roughly about 100 kilo of CO2. And then if we move on to the next point, which is ensuring accessibility and affordability and safety of food. At the minute in the trust, we run a few schemes of where we do a lot of stuff free for the actual staff. At the minute, we're running one of free cereal every morning for staff, running from 7 in the morning to 11. We also offer refresher drinks that are also free to staff. But we also have items on sale for a soup and a roll for £1. We also have a jacket potato with a filling for £1.50, and then we have a healthy wrap, which is £2.50, and that's on every single day that we actually do. So moving on to another part. So the challenges and opportunities that we've had implementing sustainability and nutrition in the NHS. The hardest part for us is making sure that they are BRC accredited and vetted before they actually come to us. And with us being quite a big trust, we have to go out to tender, which means we have to have 3 different companies come to us at the time, which is very difficult for us getting in a very small company that is local. So most of them aren't BRC accredited. So what I put in, something I did for the Sustainability Action Plan people, I said, if the government start to help us with funding to allow local businesses to be able to get BRC accreditation a little bit easier, which is a very difficult thing we find with local companies. They find it very difficult to pay for the accreditation. And if we're moving on to the practical side of bringing in sustainable food into food safety and into food in general, we're going in a new way of doing it, of bringing in 70% meat to 30% plant-based. allowing them to slowly bring it in. And this will be starting from this month all the way up until next year, of where we're going to slowly spin it around. So towards December, we should be 50-50. And then by next year, it should be 30-70. So we're trying to bring it in slowly to incorporate it so people don't automatically think we're trying to force them to be vegan, but there'll also be the meat option available at the same time. And I am going to share a slide that hopefully still works. And this is how we're actually trying to present our menus that have the CO2 part on. So this is more for the water footprint of what each of the actual mixes have. So this is a deli mix that we're running with a company called Eat Curious that has its own, I believe it's sun farm and vertical farming. So we've been learning a lot from them with how vertical farms work, and they also are 100% sustainable with the fact that their factory runs off the sunlight they collect in the day as well as in the evening. And then they sell anything back to the actual electrical company itself. So any over doesn't go into waste, it goes straight back into electric company. With the innovation of products, this is one of them, Eat Curious, and the other one is a local coffee company to actual Leicester, St. Martin's, who we're working quite close with to bring in newer coffees. And the potential benefits for the patient health and environmental and cost effective is it allows us to bring in more fiber to people's diets if we add in plant-based. Because at the minute, most people don't hit their target. I believe it's about 10% of people hit their daily intake of fiber a day. So with the plant-based side, it also gives us that part of where the plant-based has the additional fiber. And we were talking about wastage before. Wastage in the NHS is ran by 3 different ways. So we do plate waste, general waste, and then food waste that comes from the kitchen. All of it has to be weighed separately and counted separately. And I believe I'm passing on to Becky now, or is it back on to Georgia?
It's back to me, Andy. Thank you. If you can just press stop. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks so much. Right. Well, that is a good start to let everyone know what the ambitions are. Love the introduction of gradually more plant-based food. It's definitely the way to do it. You know, the model, I don't know if you guys know about what they've done in New York. The mayor of New York was really adamant that their healthcare system become a little bit more carbon thoughtful. And basically what he decided to do was all of the menus for patients, they had the vegan menu as standard or the vegetarian menu as standard, and you had to ask for the meat menu instead of the standardization being meat. And people, and it's kind of that we are not going to force you to be vegan. We're not forcing anyone to have more plant, but actually if the simple fact is that it's offered as standard and that be the standard and sort of like change things around, then actually far more people are going to be likely to choose that option. There's also, you know, that great campaign that Corn were doing around Meet Me Halfway in the NHS, and it was sort of half meat, half meat alternative options. So it's not about battering people around the head with this concept of you need to eat less meat or you need more fiber or you need more plants. It's just making the standard be more plant-based and allowing people to they will have to actively choose to eat meat as opposed to the other way around. So really appreciate you setting the scene for us there, Andy, and what you guys are doing at your trust, and hopefully it's something particularly about the smaller businesses that you're looking to get into to work with on the procurement ladder, because it's really important that we try and push down those carbon miles when it comes to food, with just being able to actually work with those local businesses. So appreciate that you've got that on your agenda from your perspective as well. So Becky, it is on to you. So obviously, as we know, you are running season well, as per your t-shirt saying, which is beautiful. I think that we should all definitely get sent one of them in the post. But if you want to tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing, we'd love to hear your presentation today.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. It's really nice to be here. So thanks for inviting us. And thanks, Andy. That was really interesting. And I really like that concept of, yeah, we're not pushing people, but we're normalizing it. And that's kind of how we feel in Season Well. So I've done you a little slideshow, and it's also to keep me to task as well, because I do tend to go off on lots of tangents. So that's another reason for me having some slides, so that I make sure I don't start telling you my life story. So let me just pull them up. Here we go. So Season Well we're a community interest company. And as it says on the tin, we are all about inspiring and enabling people to eat more seasonally, and more sustainably, and eat locally. And we do this through empowering people to know what's in season, to know how to cook with it, and to have a go at growing their own food. And we have, oops, sorry, just getting used to my my computer. We also have done some work in hospitals already. We're based in Leeds in West Yorkshire, and we have done a little piece of work with Leeds Hospitals Trust, which I will tell you about. But I've just do this kind of brief. We set up I've been doing this since 2018, and we set up as a community interest company in 2020. We've got a mixed background, and particularly in teaching and facilitation. I have worked in the NHS myself, as a practitioner. Nothing to do with food. I was a speech therapist, but I also used to work for Health Watch. So we do have quite a wide background experiences. But food is where our passion is, and eating sustainably, we all know about how important that is, because we're all here today. So of course the seasonality, as you all know about, is about reducing food miles, and obviously as well reducing the amount of energy used to produce and store food, because I don't think people think about that as much. You think about where food has come from, but if you still eat strawberries from, if they say British strawberries and they're out of season, they've been grown in a hothouse, and the impact that has on your carbon footprint, and the environment, because of the energy used to produce them. The thing that we forget to talk about as well is the actual food, when it's in season and fresh, has a much higher nutritional value. The most nutritious food you can eat is the one you've just picked from a veg bed in your workplace, in your garden, in your community. And also, what brought me into seasonal eating, before being concerned about environmental issues, is obviously it tastes better. Don't know if you've ever eaten a strawberry just picked off the plant. That's the best tasting strawberry you're going to eat. And for us, we very much feel like that eating seasonally is a lost skill, is giving it too much. It used to be normal. We all used to eat with the seasons. I'm a child of the 70s, and I can remember you got excited about when strawberries came, when it was fresh peas were in season, because that's when you ate them. And that connection has been lost. People now seem to feel that food comes in the supermarket and not from the ground, and that you can have what you want when you want it. And yes, you can, but should you? And we all know the answer is no. So we do need to connect people, and seeing food growing is the best way to connect. Even better is getting involved in food growing. And if you're not doing it yourself, seeing it growing in your community is the best way to reconnect about, oh, look, tomatoes are ready now. Tomatoes are growing here in Yorkshire. So I don't expect you to read all this now, and don't. But I'm sure these slides are going to be shared. So just a little bit about, well, what do we do, and why are we doing it? So mostly Season Well works with organisations to help them run both food growing and cooking projects with their communities. So we feel that was the best way for us to get the message out, is to work with organisations rather than working with individuals, because we can reach more people. It also fits with our skills share. As well as having a background in the NHS, I also have a background in community work. So that's kind of how we do it. So we will provide workshops around seasonal cooking, around food growing. We'll also work as a sort of consultancy basis to work with organisations to help them embed that sort of seasonality and that connection with food into the work that they're doing. I've got a colleague who's also on the webinar, so hopefully she's answering any questions that might pop up in the Q&A. And then this is about, I've kind of answered this a bit about why grow food in communities. So here you've got a lovely picture of some nice new beds built outside a community centre, right outside some blocks of flats. And it is that, yes, of course, we can produce food in a more nature-friendly way if we're growing it ourselves and we know that we're not using any, pesticides, chemicals, etc., etc. And obviously, if you're just going and picking it, it's not packaged. There is something about increasing access to fresh fruit, herbs and vegetables. And we've particularly looked about this when we've been working with people who are living in food poverty, that good quality fruits veg are expensive. And whilst we're never going to get everybody's 5 a day from what you can grow in your community veg beds or at work or at the hospital, you can grow things that otherwise might be too expensive to buy. So things like rocket, watercress, pea shoots, fancy bagged salads are actually really easy to grow. So you can grow the things that otherwise would be a bit too expensive for people. And then, of course, the growing in communities is about gaining and sharing skills, building that connection to food, sharing recipes, sharing food across different cultures. And then massively as well, it's about improving well-being, because it's not just about the food aspect of it, but getting involved in the growing of it. There is a huge documentation about how actually getting outside, connecting with nature, with the soil, with plants, is massive for improving well-being. And that sort of fits with the work that we did with the Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust. So I'm not here to say, right, hospitals, get growing your own food and put that on your, into your menus, because obviously you'd have to start a farm in order to be able to grow enough to put into your catering service. But it may well be that you could grow something to what you're doing. I mean, how fantastic would that be if you could say, and there's some, fresh herbs picked on the hospital grounds. But it's more about, like we said, about people seeing food growing and particularly thinking about staff well-being. For your staff to be able to go and pick some salad, or visitors, or patients who are, coming in using outpatients, to be able to come and pick a bit of salad to add to their sandwich, or a courgette to take home. That's what we're aspiring to do, and passing on that message about sustainable eating. So it isn't that difficult to find a patch of hospital ground where you can go, do you know what, we're going to have this as a little food growing garden, a well-being garden. We've worked with Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust, and they're to work about how to get in using the grounds that they have in a better way. And the first project that was focused on was actually a staff wellbeing garden. And we worked with a horticultural therapist and on a programme it was actually a 9-week programme for staff to have time out, and it came out of work time to come and spend an hour once a week for 9 weeks working with us and developing a food garden. And the horticultural therapist was working with them. It's particularly aimed at staff. It was just when we were coming out of COVID, and staff who were experiencing high levels of stress. So this area is outside the Trust HQ. So it's a nice little quadrangle, and what you can't see in front of that is there are quite a lot of picnic benches, and so it's somewhere where staff would normally go and sit and have their lunch outside. And in 9 weeks, we went from just those bare beds that were built for the project to having a productive vegetable garden. We also had a herbal tea garden as well, and did a session on herbal teas. So really accessible. And Season Well's role was also, we cooked food for every session. So the staff were coming and having that wellbeing time outside, and then also eating a plant-based meal that we had cooked using the produce that we were either planting. We tried to theme it that they were planting it that day, and then we were cooking to show them this is what you can do with it, or we were harvesting and cooking what was ready to harvest. We got some amazing feedback. It was only a small pilot group, so we got some amazing feedback from the participants. There is a report that was written up by Leeds Teaching Hospital, but that was more focusing on the horticultural therapy, the wellbeing side of it. And we've also done a write-up that focuses more on the food side of it. So if anybody's interested, we can share those. And then I have got a last slide saying any questions, but I suppose we're not actually taking questions, are we, Georgia?
Not just yet, but if anyone does have any questions, please use that Q&A function as opposed to the chat. I think there's a question in there. Rodrigo, if you can please put that into the Q&A so that I don't lose it in the chat, because after Grant is done, we're going to answer all of those questions. Yes, this webinar does make everyone hungry, which is why we run it at lunchtime, so that you're ready for your lunch afterwards. But yeah, seeing all that's made me hungry. And listen, you don't have to be a child of the 70s to be excited about strawberry picking. It was absolutely a steadfast part of my childhood, you know, Becky, going out strawberry picking, and you get it more on your face than in your mouth. I love the concept of outpatients being involved. You know, it'd be great to have a day where you get your prescription from your outpatient, whatever's happened. You know, here's your paracetamol and a courgette to take home as part of your prescription. That would be really, really good. So yes, as I say, there are some questions, and we'll do that after we've had the chance to speak to Grant. But if you do have any comments, if you have any links, there's a great link here already about a similar campaign to that New York hospital case study that I talked about. So please, if you have any links, any comments, anything helpful to share, use that chat function. More than happy for people to put in their contact details and things in there as well. So I'm going to jump over straight to you, Grant, as the questions are coming in, and then we'll go to the Q&A after, if that's all right.
Okay, thanks, Georgia. I'll just attempt to share my screen. Is that sharing? Can you see that, Georgia?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, that is Sharon.
Good, excellent. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grant Keenan, Managing Director of Keenan Recycling. I'm just going to take you through a little bit of what we are doing to try and improve the environment, cut down carbon, and also help with local authorities and hospitals, NHS, universities, and anywhere producing food waste to try and assist in what they're doing. So I'll take you through some of these points. So business was started in 2001 in Aberdeen when I noticed that local authorities were landfilling garden waste. So we helped divert them away from landfill and into composting. In 2008, we built a large-scale in-vessel composting system and helped the local authorities drive food waste out of the black bin, and we turned that into compost. We did the 4 local authorities in the north of Scotland, and then I looked at the commercial sector and I thought, what about all the restaurants, hotels? Nobody in Scotland was recycling food waste at that point. So I thought, look, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So we just started with 1 truck in 2009 in Aberdeen, and then I'll show you how the business is growing. So we now cover every postcode in Scotland, England, and Wales. There's nowhere we don't go. It's all done on our own wheels, so we don't subcontract. Effectively, if it goes wrong, it's me at the end of the phone call, or Teams. We can't blame it on subcontractors. And once we take the food waste from the premises, we're taking it to anaerobic digestion plants, which I'll touch on in a little while, where we're turning it into either renewable gas or electricity. As I said, full nationwide coverage, and we work with restaurants, cafes, hotels, hospitals, prison, basically anybody that's generating food waste, we can help. So obviously the timing's quite prevalent just now as new legislation is coming into place. As I'm sure you're aware, it was due to come in 2023, but because of COVID and Ukraine and everything that was going on, there was a bit of a derogation and it got pushed back to 2025. So we know that local authorities and NHS are under a lot of financial pressure. So what we're trying to do is fit with what you're looking to do, NHS, improve the green agenda and try and work with you to achieve all the goals. So what are the regulations? Well, 2025, landfilling of food waste will not be permissible anymore. We were quite blessed that we've operated in Scotland and Wales post and pre-regulations. So in Scotland, it's been regulation since 2014. So we've had quite a lot of time to get our heads around and understand how it works. Wales went there in April, and I can say firsthand, it was absolutely carnage. It was great that everybody did it, but as you can imagine, people being people, although it's well publicised, everybody waited till 8th of April and then demanded a bin. So we had thousands and thousands of bins to roll out after the due date when it was legal in force. So what I would say is try and get on board early and try and get organised and ahead of the game. And we can help move the stuff away from landfill. So regulations, as I said, I presume a lot of the NHS have been looking at the waste composition already in the run up to it, to try and understand how much waste will need to be diverted. So we're more than happy to come and do free, no commitment audits to try and help you with what you have and what potentially could be done with it. We can supply all the bins as well that are needed. We produce weight data as well, so every single bin is weighed right down to the kilogram. We produce carbon reports as well that can show you the carbon attributed to the collections, and we can produce it all in a nice kind of dashboard or weight data, however you want it. We also do live tracking and 360-degree cameras as well. So we're working with Nottinghamshire Healthcare, and since we started, they've diverted 150 tonnes away from landfill goes to renewable energy now. So it's enough to power 15 homes or 900 televisions, and that's just one place. We work with a lot of NHS trusts and hospitals. This is just one that we picked. It was a case study that we did. Why choose Keenan? I should say we're not the only company that does food waste. There are other companies that can do it. One of the things about us, as I said, is we have been long established. We've been going in Scotland, England and Wales. We've been there right through the legislation, so we understand what can go wrong and the things that we need to put in place to make things run smoothly. There's no capital cost, so we'll supply all the peelie bins and stuff free of charge. It's built into the collection cost. So there's no hidden costs further down the line or anything like that. And as I said, we can provide all the technical solutions with the weight data, and we're nice and friendly, simple, easy to deal with. You can access us through some of the frameworks that we're on. We're on TUCO, ESPO. I'm sure there's probably other platforms that you utilise or that you're on, so we can dovetail in there as well. We've about 100 vehicles. It was 18 depots. We've opened up one in Wales now, so you can see the coverage there. So there's nowhere we don't go unless it's an island. But if it's on the mainland, we'll cover it from those depots there. So, sorry, I've gone a wee bit quick there. We've got a net zero plan. I'll just wind it back, so it's worth looking at it. So we, in 2022, we substituted some of our diesel trucks for hydrolyzed vegetable oil, which reduces the carbon by 90% over diesel. We're using hydrogen trucks, and we've just ordered 10 CNG trucks, which are due to be here in September. The nice thing about that is that when we collect the food waste in the vehicle, we take it to an anaerobic digestion plant. I'll touch on the process in a little minute, but essentially it gets turned into biogas, and then we fuel the trucks with the biogas. So effectively, they are being powered by the food waste that they collect, which is a much better solution than burning diesel. So we've got a commitment that we're going to decarbonize the whole business by 2030. So every year we're improving what we do. So that'll help everybody with their scope 3 as well. And we've committed to no more diesel trucks. As I said, every bin is weighed. You see on the screen there as well. We can lift 2 at a time and present the data for each bin independently. You can have the data however you like it, in real time as it's being lifted, at the end of the day or at the end of the week or month. It's very customable, so if that's a word. And very fast response time as well. So with dedicated office, lots of collection specialists that are on hand that can help with information. And as I said, we've got live tracking. So if you need to know when the bin will be lifted or where the truck is, we can present that in real time. So a little bit about anaerobic digestion. For those of you that aren't familiar with, it's kind of it does what it says in the tin. It's anaerobic because the food waste is starved of oxygen, so it goes anaerobic. The methogens are the bugs that digest the food waste. So essentially, when we take the food waste into these plants, it goes through a depackager, which separates any bits of polythene or cardboard or anything. The food waste element is liquefied, put into a tank where it's starved of oxygen. That creates methane gas. The gas is then harvested and turned into a liquid, where it's used to feed like a generator, which generates green electricity, or depending if it's a gas to grid plant, then the gas will be either refined and fed into the grid, or it will be refined into biofuel, which can go into our trucks. The byproduct of an anaerobic digestion plant is a material called digestate, which is like a soily compost material, and that gets spread onto agricultural land, where it not only improves the soil health, it gets microbial activity, it gets the worms and things going, but it also is quite useful for carbon sequestration, where it actually locks the carbon into the ground, which is really good for the atmosphere. I mean, if you consider the difference between landfilling food waste, which basically rots anaerobically, the methane goes up into the atmosphere, and that's 24 more times harmful than CO2. So methane is really bad. So by putting it into one of these plants, we can harvest it and get some use out of it. 1 ton of food waste dumped in landfill, 600 kilograms of CO2. So you imagine how much food waste there is right across the NHS platform throughout the UK. It's really a valuable resource that, through no fault of anybody's, it's just technology advances, but that resource has been kind of squandered over the years, and it's been damaging the planet. So this is a really good win-win for everybody here. This is the process, just in a flowchart. I'll not delve into it in detail. I've kind of touched on it already. We'll share the slides after this as well. But essentially, this just shows what I've been talking about there. When we look at technologies as well, we have to consider where the fleet is. Where can we get our CNG to fill the trucks? There's a huge CNG, I think it's the largest in Europe, in Avonmouth. And a lot of the anaerobic digestion plants are putting them in. And in Aberdeen, we use hydrogen as well. We're also looking at electric vehicles as well for dense routes within cities, but they're very expensive still. I mean, for comparison, the trucks that we have are £200,000 each. For an electric one, exactly the same, is 380,000. So it's a big cost. And you have to be careful of the infrastructure to make sure that that can support the fleet as well. We double shift trucks as well, so where we can, we run night shifts and weekends, which makes it a little bit more feasible to justify it. So that's what Keenan Recycling does in a nutshell. We're on a net zero journey to decarbonise by 2030, and we're hoping that some people in the NHS will jump on board and help the Keenan story. So that's me. Thank you, Georgia. I'll attempt to stop sharing my screen now.
You've done it, Grant. Perfect.
Oh, good. I hope I wasn't on mute the whole time.
Would have let you. We're just laughing in the background. No, thanks so much. Like, what an amazing operation that you've managed to put together. And it's not just it's very, very multifaceted, isn't it? You've thought about quite a lot of different things. I appreciate that one of your USPs was that you're just friendly. You're just friendly, guys. That's great. It's great to know, isn't it? Okay, we've got a lot of great stories coming in. I really appreciate everyone sharing. We've got Rebecca Waters at Homerton in Hackney talking about what they're doing with their food project. We've got Jill, she's shared this amazing story that's happening in Cornwall. Emily has jumped in and shared a link to that as well. So any other initiatives like this, please do share any links, share any great stories. I'm going to actually share with you guys now our NHS nutrition report that we did at Sustainability Partnerships. So I'm just going to share that as a link if anyone wants to download that. That's a free download. So yeah, so Mary is currently getting carbon footprints of the top 3 meals served. And is asking if anyone else has carbon footprinted their meals. Obviously, we had that case study there from Andy as well. So anything like this that people can share. I'm going to jump straight into the Q&A because there's actually a hell of a lot of questions for us to get through in the last 20 minutes. So first up, Andy, we've got a question here from Sue, and she's gone in quite hard for the first question, but I think it's great and it's really important. And this is what we were talking about a lot in the first webinar that we did this morning about the granularity of the claims around sustainability and really going sort of under the skin of things. So she's asked about when we're using plant alternatives, do we take into account how ultra processed these are and the implications of health, but then also the implications of, you know, the carbon intensity of processing foods as well. So I'll let you take that one away, Andy, if you don't mind, the first hard question.
So yeah, I can take that away. With that, it's one of these where it goes through our dietitians first, and if it's approved by them, then we're allowed to use it. So they have to send us all the specifications of the food, so it can be gone over by them. And if they approve it, we then work into our system to see if it's actually usable within our food itself. So hopefully that does answer the question of where we do have the protocols of they actually come in first to make sure it meets the requirements for the NHS before we're even allowed to touch it.
Yeah, that's great. And if anyone else has any other way, like QC around so-called sustainable alternatives, just because it's not meat doesn't mean that it's sustainable in the way that it's made. So it's a great question, and it's important for us to make sure that we are questioning claims all the time as well. Charlotte has asked for you, Becky. She loves the Leeds Teaching Hospital project. What happened to the project after the pilot phase? Do you know what's happening now?
Yes, the plan was that we would do more, but the RHS picked Leeds as one of the 3 hospitals in the country where they are developing a well-being garden. So we've been kind of, and I'm not going to use the word usurped, because we've actually been brought into the project. Because for us, it's like, great, you know, the more, as long as food, for us, it's like, as long as food is part of the project. So Adam Frost, if those of you who watch Gardener's World, I didn't know who he was, but I do now. So he's a telly famous garden designer, is designing has done the design for the garden. Both the hospital staff and we were invited to a co-design session. So we're going to be having a fantastic new garden in Leeds for staff, visitors, and the community. And we've been working with the RHS in connecting the community organisations and community gardens in, so that we'll all be able to take advantage of it. Come and visit us when it's ready.
We will. We're in Leeds as well, Becky. I don't know if you know, but Sustainability
Oh, right.
Yeah, we've got great connections with LTHT. So, and I'm a big well fan, so I'll be down there to meet Adam for sure. I'll bring my mum. Okay, so we do have a question here about will the case studies be live? Yes, we're going to be sharing them on the write-up along with the video and a write-up. So all of the slides will be there along with that one. So we've got a question here about how people love these projects in the NHS and growing food and all that kind of thing. There is a barrier around people getting involved and feeling that they have permission to get involved or take a break to grow food. And I think that might be one for you there, Becky, as well, how you've worked with the management from the top all the way through to say people do have permission to get involved with this. It's not just for the select few who might not have that much to do. How do you get through to everyone that's for everyone?
Yeah. Well, I think it's about making those connections. We were fortunate that we were invited to come and be part of a working group that were looking at this already, but it was championed by a speech and language therapist. So it wasn't started as at a management level. It went up and became management. So I would say find your allies within the hospital. If you're just working on a grassroots level and you're not connected with management, find your allies to get in there, and then definitely through staff wellbeing, which is an important issue for the NHS, and talk to whoever you need to talk to. So it might not be the managers of the staff that are coming to you. It might be that you just find your allies, and it might even be within the trust. The chair of the trust came and had her photo taken and got involved. So it's just or go through the staff wellbeing avenue.
Great answer. I hope that's helpful to a lot of people actually. I'll jump on to some for you, Grant. There's one here about the depackaging of waste, of food waste. Is it just generally food that goes into these bins, or is it the packaging as well? And how do you deal with that?
It's food and packaging. It's quite a simple process, but very effective. So essentially, you have a big hopper, the food mixed in with the packaging, be it cups or cellophane or whatever, goes up a twin screw auger, then into it's like a big cylinder with a shaft in the middle with paddles at an angle. So rather than shredding it, it beats it. So as the paddle hits the food in the packaging, it separates it off. The bottom of the cylinder is perforated. It's like a screen in it. Water is injected into it. So the food essentially becomes liquefied and comes out through the bottom of the screen. And because the paddle's at an angle, they set up a vortex, which then pulls the packaging out like by wind. So it sucks the packaging out, and that's how you get the separation. It's quite important though to note that these machines can't tell the difference between a compostable cup or a normal cup. So if you have a route to composting for vegware or alternative cups, I would keep them separate, because if it goes in the package, the depackager will just treat it as contamination.
Yeah. All right. Well, great question and really in-depth answer as well, Grant. I appreciate that. I didn't have a clue how that was going to happen. So that's really interesting as well. I feel like we need to have a tour of one of these plants, don't we? And see the anaerobic. Tell me again.
It's an anaerobic digester, but
yeah.
if anyone's interested, we can organise a trip anywhere in the UK. There's AD plants everywhere. So if you're interested, we can
There's
facilitate.
90 of us on this call today, so I hope that you've got 90 hivers ready for us to come for a tour. There's another question here around how the NHS cope with unsold hot food. Is this sent for disposal or donated? Do you know very much about that, Andy, and how that's done, or Grant, if you know anything about that as well?
So with our trust on its own, we have to follow the food safety rules. So if it's been out for more than 90 minutes, it does have to be disposed of. So we have rules around how we have to do it. So if it is something that's been in, it's not gone out of date, we are allowed to send it to a food bank if they will accept it. But it all depends on the food safety route.
Yeah. And do you know of anything, Grant, where you've seen people using things like food banks or other networks like Too Good to Go, or those ones like that, you know, I think Pret might use for their food?
Yeah, I think, everybody will agree, I'm sure, that the first destination of food should be for human consumption for people that really need it. It's almost criminal how much food waste is being wasted that could be consumed. We work with the food banks like FareShare and places like that, because historically what was happening was sometimes the food banks were being used as a little bit of a dumping ground for, I'm not naming the supermarkets names, but a few of them, as food was coming to its end of date, they would give that to the food banks, and then once the expiry dates reached, the food banks were struggling because they then had big disposal bills to get rid of the food. So we work with them very closely to make sure we can keep them clear. We do it at next to no cost or very little, so that the burden's not on the food banks, and then that then lets them with confidence take on more food that could be utilised to people that need it. Does that answer your question?
I think so. And just to plug a charity that I work with as well, Food Cycle here we've got it in Yorkshire, quite a few different places where we're always looking at donations of food, just to throw that in there as well. There's one here I think, again, maybe might be for you, Andy. When you look at the carbon footprint of food, are you basing it on global averages or the actual carbon footprint? UK produced meat and dairy has much lower carbon footprint than the global average, and in some cases can be carbon negative. I wasn't aware of that.
So we're not actually fully involved with it at the minute, but we are looking for more England based, because of the cost to actually get it over from overseas. But it all depends on how the NHS England want to run it, because we're governed by them in general.
Yeah. For you, Becky, we've got a question. Are there any assurances or certifications that a healthcare service would have to complete in order to use their own site for growing veg and their kitchens? At their hospice, they already have lots of brambles and an apple tree. This sounds like there's a good crumble ready to go there, isn't there? But they are told by the catering team that they can't use them because of the quality needs to be assured. Do you know anything about that?
No. So I think actually it would. I can understand that frustration. We have come across that in a voluntary community garden that I work with. It's outside a pub, and them saying they can't use the stuff. So that would be. I would love to pass that question to Andy, because basically we've been focused on, you don't need any quality assurances to grow it and inviting people to pick it themselves, but actually getting it into the hospital sort of, meals like you're trying to do at the hospice. Andy, do you know, you mentioned before about BRC accredited, and I didn't know what that meant. So whether are you able to give us any info?
So when they talk about quality insurance, it's mainly to make sure it's followed the correct procedure, to make sure there's no contaminants within it. And certain trusts have the bit where it has to meet certain requirements before they're allowed to have it in. So if it's too small, I know it's bad to say with like wonky veg, they don't like to have, it's got to be a uniform veg for catering in general. But there is companies that are starting to work with the trust, but it's getting the trust on board to actually work with them.
Yeah.
Just to say that you can be registered with the local authority to be a food producer.
Mm-hmm.
So for Season Well, we're registered our kitchens are registered, even though actually we're cooking mostly in a domestic kitchen. And I used to work with Incredible Edible Aqua Garden up in Todmorden, and they became registered with the local council to provide food. So I'm sure there are ways to develop this and get past. If you're working with a smaller kitchen, say like in a hospice, maybe they would be less bothered about it being a uniform size. But you might have to go down the route of making sure that you follow safety guidelines around how you're producing the food.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Again, you know, we're here to support people in trying to work with those barriers and trying to give support and to help people navigate, you know, the red tape that happens to come up quite often when we're trying to push for more sustainable alternatives. Another couple for you, Grant. David Nurse wants to know if you're available on Crown Commercial Services Framework, and Nigel wants to know the cost of collecting food by the ton. Food waste, not food.
I'm not sure if we are. If somebody wouldn't mind emailing me details of that, we'd be happy to register. It doesn't ring a bell, but we're on frameworks that maybe I don't know about. Cost per ton, we charge per wheelie bin. So a wheelie bin would be roughly, what would it be in a bin? Well, it can hold 240 litres. Weight-wise, let's say it's 100 kilograms. And in average, it may be about, say, £6.50. So it'd be about £65 a tonne, which, if you consider landfill tax alone, is about 120. So the tax is less than half the tax. The other thing I'd be careful of as well, that a lot of the equipment that's sometimes used is under consultation. So in Scotland, when the regulations came in, they simultaneously banned macerating to the sewer as well, because Scottish Water could foresee that if you weren't allowed to landfill food, that there might be large premises start macerating, and the sewers were put in by Victorians and aren't designed for food going down, so all the fat burgers and things like that. So in Scotland, macerating to the sewer was illegal. And I think some of the other technologies as well are under the microscope. So I would just be a little bit cautious about big capex spends and anything, just in case it gets made obsolete through the consultations.
Really good tips there from Grant. I appreciate that. So, there's someone else asking about by the ton, but you've answered that, so that's fine. We've got more questions around the gardens and things. So Charlotte asks, any examples of NHS of long-term funding and commitment to a community grower to lead use of garden across the community as a core part of the workforce? Again, Becky shaking her head, no.
These days, there's not such a thing as long-term funding. Yeah, you're always chasing. We actually got it through, and I'm sorry, and I can't remember. And Viv, if you're in the chat, can you remember, write up who we got our funding from? But it was actually from the Leeds Trust Hospital's own charity funded our project, and we'd started the process of looking for more funding, but obviously you know, then the RHS came along with their massive gift. So but yeah, I'm afraid it's like anybody, you know, you're always looking for funding.
Yeah, anything public is always the case, but it's great to see that at least that RHS stuff has come in. Grant, there are some everyone's trying to send you links here to Crown Commercial, make sure that you're on that framework. It is one of the bigger ones, especially here in England. So you probably want to make sure that you're on that one. Someone's asking as well, Grant, how are you dealing with the liquid waste?
So as long as the wheelie bin's not too full, like sort of 2/3, then we can handle liquid. The vehicles are sealed as well, so there isn't any leakage. We did use previously in a hospital, it's what we call a fat box. It's about 140 litres, looks like a wheelie bin, but essentially when the lid comes down, it clips down, and there's a rubber seal. So if there are liquids like leftover soup or anything, it can be wheeled safely to the bin area without any leakage. And as long as it's not filled right to the brim, then we can take the liquid as well. That's not a problem.
All right, great. Well, I've got 5 minutes left, so I do have to go into some of the stuff that we're up to for the rest of the Sustainability Day of Action. So first of all, this is a great one from Rebecca. Someone's asked about when the awards close. So I've not actually mentioned anything about the awards. So if you want to, she's put the link in about the awards into the chat. I don't see it there on the chat. So we do have our awards this year as usual, but that is a little bit later on in the year. I'll go through what else we have today. We do have one more event this afternoon, and it's on communication. So two great events that we've had so far, but unless there's effective communication that actually engages with people, there's not a lot of point in doing anything, because you need to have everyone on board and have it as a really inclusive conversation around sustainability. So that's our final webinar. That's free to attend, like these other two have been, and you're still able to sign up to that one now. So we've hopefully, yeah, we've got a link there, and the upcoming events link for you guys to sign up to our webinar this afternoon if you're interested in that one. What I also wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of is our Sustainable Suppliers Index. So this has been launched last week, and it's the first time that we've done this. One of the main core factors of sustainability partnerships is allowing for connection between new, novel, interesting, and most highly sustainable alternatives to what is currently happening within the frameworks for procurement in the NHS, with those NHS procurement professionals who are looking to procure a little bit more sustainably. So it's a place where hopefully all types of different businesses will be at your fingertips, that you can easily go on and check for yourselves. We have just put the Sustainable Suppliers Index link there. If you are a business, you can go on. It's a self-service platform. There is a bit of QC there that will make sure that you are legitimate before it goes out to anyone at the NHS, but you can set up your own little profile there, and it links out to all of your social, and it has a blurb and everything. So this is kind of the culmination of all of the great connections that we've made over the last 3 years, and all of the presentations that we've had, and all of the amazing companies that, you know, some procurement professionals may never have heard of if they hadn't joined one of our webinars. So we really appreciate everyone throughout the years being actively involved with us. So please do meet us again this afternoon at 4 till 5 if you're available. If you're not available but you do sign up, you will still get the link sent to you for the write-up. Similarly, since you've signed up to this webinar, you will get the link to the write-up of this webinar in an email, which will have the full video for you to read back, links to everyone's contact details, all of the slides that everyone has shared, and yeah, the full write-up of the video. Someone just has asked about the air quality. We are not doing the air quality webinar. That one did get cancelled. It got cancelled when we moved it from what was Clean Air Day before the election to today, because it's not Clean Air Day, which is quite annoying, because we thought it was really fitting for the day, but that was down to the election, so I can only apologise for that. There will be more conversations around clean air going forwards throughout the year, but yeah, we're not running that one today, so thanks for asking, Miranda, I appreciate that. Since we've been talking about delicious foods and nutrition and having a courgette with your prescription, I think that we all need to go and get some lunch. So it's nothing left to do but to say thank you so much to everyone who attended today and taken over your lunch hour. We do really appreciate that. We had more people on today than we have on a lot of previous ones, so appreciate everyone coming on and spending your lunch with us. Thank you to Andy and sharing what's happening with his trust and everything that he's able to share with us, and hopefully there's some inspiration there. Thanks to Becky. Really hope that I get a chance to come and meet Adam and come over to Leeds Teaching Hospitals and see what you're doing there. I'll definitely come and pick my own if there's any peas going. To Grant, thanks so much for sharing it and teaching us all a little bit more about anaerobic digestion today, and for offering up the free tours as well. Make sure you get in touch with Grant to get yourself signed up to that and learn a little bit more. And we'll see you again in a few hours at 4 p.m. for the communications webinar. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.